Hi, it's Rebecca from Grove Knits and Yarns. It's been a long time since I've podcasted for a while, so I'm trying to actually get back into the swing of things again. I haven't posted an episode since this time last year. It was October last year was my last podcast. For those of you who have remained subscribed, thank you very much. If anyone's just found me, welcome. This is episode 11. But as I said, it's been quite some time since I have podcasted because at the end of last year I had a job change. I'm now at a different school, secondary school. I'm a secondary school teacher. I teach English and Humanities, if that's of interest to anyone. And so there was a big job change, that there's a huge amount of workload change that comes along with that. And then COVID happened in March and yes, well, that I use this as a space to post content about my love of knitting. I also spin as well. I have not posted for a long time, so thank you if you've been bearing with me. That is awesome. It's actually been since this time last year that I last posted. Life has just simply gotten hectic, but needless to say, I have a huge amount of knitting to share with you. I apologise for my background and the location that I'm having to film in. While we're coming out the other side of COVID lockdown, we had moved, my husband and I had moved to a stage of life where it was just essentially the two of us home and just had kids popping in occasionally because my kids now are adults. However, as part of COVID, everyone moved back home, along with a husband of one of them came back home and the girlfriend of another one came back home. So we went from essentially two of us to 7 adults and 3 dogs living in one house. So it's rather busy and my house is rather full. We're bursting at the seams, which is another reason why I haven't been posting. But I've really actually missed it and I want to start sharing my knitting again. So let's give this a go and we'll see how it all progresses. I have so much knitting to share that this is definitely going to be split into a few different uploads. And then once I get through the knitting that we've done, I will be back on an even keel hopefully and just back to realistically a monthly posting update of what I've knitted on during the week, not the week, the month, sorry, what I've knitted on during the month, what I'm up to, what I'm enjoying, yarn I've been playing with, other crafty type stuff. So thank you very much for joining me again, and now we're going to start to have a look at catching up on all the knitting I've done. Okay, so you see I've had a wardrobe change. So this is the, I'm probably going to say this wrong, the Mariechen by Isabell Kraemar. And I did this in February. So I've actually had a bit of a washing accident, so it's a little bit snugger than it was, or it's the joys of COVID. And this is just in a Bendigo Woollen Mills Imperial yarn, which is a petal pink. And it's got gorgeous detail, as you can see, coming down. I actually really liked knitting this sweater and I would definitely do it again. I have chosen not to put buttons in, but again, I'm really loving the detail that this pattern has. Isabell Kraemar's pattern was really nice and simple to follow. And this Imperial yarn by Bendigo Woollen Mills, for me, it's a little bit itchy. It's super soft. It's a 75% wool, 20% alpaca and 5% silk. And I think my skin doesn't really like alpaca because I'm noticing that anything with alpaca, I just get a little bit itchy in. So I suspect it's the alpaca because I can wear rustic wools and not really be bothered by them. Whereas this one gets a lot of wear around the house in colder days, but I'm not really wearing it out too much already, just having it on my arms because I've got just a singlet top on today. My arms are actually feeling a little bit itchy. But again, I really love this sweater pattern and I really do think I will actually knit another one of these. I'd like this in a nice dark, maybe a dark navy blue or a dark grey, something along those lines. And this size was fine for me. As I said, it was just simply that with everyone being home, someone got extra excited and unfortunately put some of my hand knits through the washing machine. And that would have probably been okay and I could have salvaged that. But then they took it from, bless them, from the washing machine to the dryer. I managed to rescue what was in there relatively quickly, so they, you know, like this didn't felt, but it definitely did shrink up a little bit. Lost a few pairs of socks, that type of thing. But I said they were trying to do the right thing. Just, yes, I'm sure we've all had these issues happen. So in March, apart from the fact I did I've really been knitting a lot of beanies, and I mean a lot. I went and did a fair old workshop just before lockdown in March. Not because I didn't know how to do fair old, because I do, but it was more that I actually wanted to have a weekend with like-minded people. So I kind of figured going to a fair old workshop just in Meldon, which is a rural Victorian town that's not too far from me. I just thought it was a beautiful opportunity to sit down in a room with other people who actually are excited about knitting as well, and knitting a fair old hat. So we did this one. So along with the workshop, we've got the kit, and this is Millpost Merino. They're a New South Wales producer of well, they've got sheep and they've got their own yarn that they produce from that. And this, it's a super fine merino yarn, and it is just amazing. I did end up modifying the pattern that came with the kit, because I kind of find that most beanie patterns, I don't know if everyone else has unusually large heads, but I find beanie patterns to be larger than the norm for anyone in my family. So I don't know if it's just that we've got smaller heads or people like to wear them a lot looser than I do. This one still has space, but I think I cut about 10 stitches out of the pattern. It was a full repeat that I took out anyway. So yeah, so this was a nice, super fine Millpost Merino yarn. I was really impressed with the softness of the yarn, and I really loved going to the workshop. It was just lovely to spend a weekend with the same kind of people. I also did modify the pattern by doing a twisted rib. So I know this looks a little bit grottier now, but it's been since March and it's been getting a lot of wear. So that was one of the beanies I did. I made a second version of this with some Bendigo Woollen Mills yarn. When I go through all the beanies, you'll see the alternate colours, just because it's quite a nice art. So in April, I discovered Maxim Sir, I think it is, C-Y-R. How do I say that? Maxim Sir, he's on Ravelry. I'll make sure I link all these patterns below as well. And he's got a sweater called the So Basic Sweater. It's gender neutral, but I did this one for my husband. So this is a So Basic Sweater. And this is actually just a really beautiful sweater pattern that has some lovely detailing on the arms. Now the actual pattern has long sleeves. My husband prefers to have his sleeves come to just above the elbow. And this sweater, so this one is knit in, the pattern calls for fingering weight, so 4-ply. I knit this in 5-ply Bendigo Woollen Mills. It's a classic, so it's a bit more of a rustic, and it is just called the yarn's Classic Silver. So a 5-ply Classic Silver, just with a pop of colour. I just put yarn in the back of the neck so it's easy for him to see which way this goes. So pop of colour around the neck, and he also asked for a pop of colour around the edging. So this sweater gets so much wear. He loved this so much that I knit him a second one, and it was actually quite a nice knit to do. Now the interesting thing is, Bendigo Woollen Mills yarn that I love, and it's my good old workhorse yarn, and I'm fortunate that it's actually a really affordable yarn. So if you've not bought Bendigo Woollen Mills yarn before, it's worth actually having a look at their website and getting some. They've got different ranges. There's the classic, which is there's a rustic, a classic, there's luxury, different levels of pilling, obviously depending on what you're doing with them. As I said, in my cardigan, that was in their Imperial, which has the alpaca and silk. So those different labels have the different blends through them. So this was classic. So I think for a 200 gram ball of yarn, it's about $14. And in the 4-ply, that's 720 meters in a ball. But this was knit in 5-ply. Then I knit him the same sweater again, but in a Malabrigo. So Malabrigo is particularly soft and squishy. I only had 2 100-gram skeins of Malabrigo, so I popped some striping in this in just a Bendigo Woollen Mills luxury midnight, I think it is. So it's like a black, as you can see, just so to get me a full sweater size. Now the interesting thing is, in the real world of wearing, while I can appreciate the softness of this, and for myself I would prefer to have Malabrigo soft and squishy against my skin, in the real world my husband prefers the structure of a more rustic sweater. So he actually wears this one a lot more than this one. He still wears this one a lot, but because it's so soft, he finds it a bit too flowy for himself. So that was an interesting thing. This one I downsized the arms a little bit for him, because the classic silver one, the arms are just a little bit loose for him. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing with him and yarn. So for my husband's sweaters, I will stick to some more of those rustics and classics that don't overly soften over time, because when that happens, he's enjoying them less. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, beside me, I've got some of the stuff that I'm knitting on. I'll also pop up some images of some other bits and pieces that I've done throughout winter, because we live in such a cold area. My husband asked me to make him a balaclava, because he walks almost somewhere between 80 to 100 kilometres a week. He's quite athletic, and so he goes and walks between 5 and 8 Ks most days, and then if he couples that with golf, he gets up all the extra kilometres and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so we looked up a balaclava, and the one that I picked was called Jackyll Hide instead of Jackyll Hide, so Jackyll with an A and Hide with an I, and it is hilarious. I wouldn't, I'll pop it on for you. So this, he was wearing for a while when he was out going for walks. Along with, on top of this, if you can picture it, he popped a beanie as well, and he'd have his mittens on and things, which I'll show you. It is the weirdest looking balaclava, but it kept him warm. It's got interesting neck details. Just let me take this off now. So needless to say, got all fibres on my face. He stopped wearing it after a while because he went back just to wearing his normal beanie. And what he ended up getting me to make for him was a cowl. So this is in just another Bendigo Woollen Mills yarn. So we just did a cowl for him, along with mittens. I couldn't get him to wear mittens before, but now he happily walks with mittens on, so that his hands don't get cold. And I'm going to talk about this pattern of beanie. It's by Wormhead. I've bought a few of her ebooks with her beanie patterns. For my own pleasure knitting now, that I have found her patterns and I'm loving her construction, I don't think that I'll do any other type of beanie for gift knitting alike. So these beanies, I am absolutely adoring the way she does her construction. It's sideways, filled with German short rows, so you've got to be happy doing German short rows. I wasn't that confident with German short rows until I started making a lot of her beanies. Because you're doing so much of it, my German short row game is awesome now. I have no issues with it at all. I can do it in any format. But as you'll see here, it is just gorgeous. So the name of this beanie by Woolly Wormhead is the Air Opal Beanie. Okay, it was beautiful. I bought I think it was the Elemental collection from memory. I don't have the yarn that I used listed down. However, I do know that this grey blue is actually a hand spun that I bought at last year's Seymour Agricultural Show. So it was by a local spinner, and the orange that's in there, that rust colour, is a Bendigo Woollen Mills basic, just a basic 8-ply rust, but I actually think that one might be a 5-ply. So yes, that's done with a hand spun. Now this was the perfect size, which I was very fortunate with, because I then knit another one of her beanies with another hand spun yarn, and that one came out quite large. So I'll show you that shortly. But what I should have done with that one is taken out an extra panel. And again, it was an 8-ply, but it's just that one of those, the beauties of hand spun yarns is that they behave differently all the time. But I said this hat is simply, so you can see it a bit better there, simply stunning. And I noticed on Ravelry just the other day that she's actually just released another pattern for another German short row hat with the sideways construction. So I'm absolutely going to buy that and knit that as well, because these beanies are just gorgeous, or hats I should say, it's not a beanie as such. They're just gorgeous, and they're so warm and squishy because they're done in garter stitch, so they're just amazing. All right, okay, now on to some whips that I've got, some works in progress. A colour work sweater that I'm making in these two colourways. So it's a bluey denim colour and a cream, and these were just Knit Picks yarns. These are both 4-plies. So put those down. This is Meadow Moon by Jennifer Steingass, and I'm not that far through it. I'm not really feeling, I'm not vibing with colourwork yokes at the moment. Now I was intentionally going not overly high contrast, so my other ones that I've done have all been quite high contrast. So I intentionally wanted something that was a lower contrast. There we go, you can see that a little bit better there now. It's beautiful patterns. I love Jennifer Steingass's patterns. I've knit Arboreal before I should say, and one other that I'm having a blank with. I really do like her neck construction, just that rolled neck. And I will with this one, I actually want to do a bit of A-line shaping, because, you know, almost 50, so you need that kind of thing. And probably add a little bit more length than the norm. But this is in really beautiful squishy yarn. It's a super fine merino, 4-ply. It's just awesome, but it's not flying off my needles because I'm just not vibing with the focus of a colourwork pattern at the moment, which is interesting when you start to have a look at some of the other stuff that I'm working on at the moment. I'm probably knitting a few rows on this maybe once a week. I pull it out, just do a few rows, pop it away again. That way it's still progressing. All right. Like all of us, and so we're not going to get through all this stuff today because it's just too much to cover. Like all of us, I always have socks on the go, or like most of us should say. This is, so I've always done leg down socks, and then normally done a heel flap and gusset. Normally an eye of partridge heel is my normal go-to. Do the foot and then kitchen the toe. That's been my go-to for ages. I don't need to follow a pattern for it, I just know it by heart. I've changed my tune to doing toe up now, and I'm loving it. I'm doing toe up since the woolly Wormhead hats. I'm embracing German short row heels. Again, I was too worried about them before, so I've now switched to doing toe up socks, German short row heels, and then just running up the leg, and I'm loving them. I'm finding sock knitting to be to have gone from, it's never been a chore, it's probably the wrong word, but sometimes it's just a bit more of an effort than at other times. Neighbours doing work in the yard obviously, but now doing it this way, it's really, really nice and quick. And how gorgeous is this yarn? Let me just show you this. That's the ball wound up there. Gorgeous, as you can see, neon colours and all that type of thing. And this is yarn from an Australian dyer. She's a West Australian dyer, knit or dye. And this colourway is Glowworm. It is Glowworm, isn't it? Yep, Glowworm. So you can definitely see the glowworminess of it, and it is just stunning. So I'm really loving this, and I'm a new convert to colour changing, having a self-striping that colour changes essentially every second or third round, because I'm finding I don't need to have my measuring tape handy as often, because I know as it is, I would say to stop doing whatever they're doing. I know that, so my foot is 8.5 inches long, so I'm doing this to 6.5 inches. At 6 inches, I was at that last to the top, the first of the greens. So I reckon I'm just about another ½ inch by about now, just by that colour striping. So that's actually been quite good. All right, so another work in progress. Now this has a bit of a story with it. I've got my 25th wedding anniversary coming up, and my husband has decided that in the 25 days leading up to it, I'm going to get a gift every day. So, yay. We're about a week in now, so it's awesome. So the very first day, he started with a gift of a kit from Skein Sisters in Sydney, which is a yarn shop. It was a full kit for Stephen West's Painting Bricks shawl. So we've got black as our main colour, and then these wonderful rainbow colours going through. I've been knitting on this pretty monogamously at the moment, except for socks, because they're always in the car with me if I'm a passenger in the car. I've been knitting on this pretty much entirely for the last week, so I'm progressing quite well. I can't spread it out just because I'm halfway through a row, so I didn't pre-plan that very well. But on the next episode, I'll be able to show you my progression. But I'm really loving the colours. He's picked colours that I wouldn't normally have picked for myself, which is awesome, because it means that I'm stepping outside of my standard yarn choices. The yarn that he chose is, again, I'm so thankful he did it, because I probably wouldn't have splurged on this myself. He bought extra superfine merino balls. They are redonkulous in how soft they are. The downside of that is, at the moment I don't have my nails done, so even the slightest bit of roughness on my fingers is pulling at it. So I'll just need to be careful with that as I go through, but it is amazing. I expect that I'll be finished this by maybe another week, and it is just gorgeous. I can't wait to block it out. It's going to look amazing. So I'm very thankful to be married to the man that I'm married to, because that's really, really sweet. And what I was knitting on before I switched to that, because of that gift, was, okay, so this is done in cotton, Bendigo Woollen Mills cotton, with the intention of being for a silver. This is a 8-ply, and it's called Latte is the colour. And what I'm knitting is Knititude's Easy Eyelet Yoke Dress. So if I do it this way, here's the back and which is the front. Yep, that's the front. So beautiful eyelets, and then you cast off, that's the waist. It will have elastic in the waist, it doesn't yet. And so I'm now running down the dress part. It's obviously the number of stitches, it's going to take a while because it's a dress that's going out. I loved the construction of this neck. I've not done a neck like this before. It's a folded, pick up the stitches and then knit them together. I had to do that twice. The first time I did it, we were away for the weekend. The very first weekend that regional residents of Victoria were allowed to leave the house, my husband and I, because we've got so many people living here with us, escaped the house, and we went to Beechworth for the weekend, another regional town. So I cast this on in the car driving there, and I got down past, Cheddar, stop it. And I got down past, I think down to the second set of eyelets, and then I realised that I had folded this neck over on almost like a bias. I think I was just out by maybe 2 stitches. So I tried to see if I could live with it, realised I really couldn't because it's quite obvious, and so I just actually ripped it all back and redid it. Normally I just live with things, but I actually think that I'll get a lot of wear out of this dress, so I wanted it to be right. So then what I did when I redid it, I grabbed, luckily I had my whole container of stitch markers with me in the car, because what I ended up doing was I put a stitch marker on every single stitch and was then able to, we'll just wait for my neighbour, it's across the street. So I put a stitch marker on every single stitch that would then help me to be able to line those up better. When I then came to knit through that stitch, I just sort of lifted the stitch marker, was able to put the needle through, knit it, and then move on. Doing that got me to line it up perfectly, so that was a really good tip. So I'm looking forward to wearing this, but this is on hold until I finish my Stephen West shawl. So that's what I was knitting on. I'll quickly just run through some of the other things I've been knitting, and then I'll just show you some of the beanies. I've got an Etsy store, which I'll also be linked down below, and predominantly I knit beanies because I just enjoy knitting nice quick knits, and I actually put them, because there's so many, just in my Etsy store. So if you want to have a look, feel free to have a look. It's linked below. Dog sweaters. I'll pop a photo up here so you can see the dog, and for this one, the cat in this sweater. So just really basic, standard dog sweaters. I've knit a couple of wool ones as well. So parade of photos going across here now. These ones are everyday ones. These are actually just in an acrylic yarn so that these can go into the wash. So we have 3 dash hounds here. One is smaller than the other. So 2 of them fit in this larger size, and then one of them is a smaller one, so she's in the smaller stuff. And this fits the cat as well. Okay, so I'm just going to run through now some of the beanies I've been doing. These are all in my Etsy shop as well. Okay, so this one is knit in Bendigo Woollen Mills yarn. It's a honey colour and just a black. As you can see, it's just got a fair old pattern there. It's just in an adult size, space for a larger head as well. This is a mild hat. Again, it's in all wool again. The base is a Bendigo Woolens, just a bone colour, and the colour that you can see is actually a sock yarn. That's it there. I've been going through quite a mild phase, so this is another mild hat in, again, just a standard bone base, all wool again. And then you can see the colour shifting coming through here. Here's another one. Okay. This is Woolly Wormhead's Katara hat. This is the other one that I said I did with a hand spun, but it's come out quite large. So it would be great for someone with a lot of hair. You can see it's got quite a space in the back as well. So if you've got a lot of hair and you need extra space, this is quite good. Otherwise, it's just simply a nice, roomy hat. But I said I really love her colour. So this is again just in a hand spun in greens and oranges, and the light green is a Bendigo Woollen Mills yarn through there as well. Okay, this is another woolen hat just with some colour blocking and some different yarns. This one is in the honey colourway with Bendigo Woollen Mills, and I've done some yarn over. I've done some yarn over in there, so you can see there's just some lace detail. There's a little bit of space in the back as well. Marling again, just an orange and a cream. So we've got all colours, all types. These again, just some basic beanies. There's a local designer to me. She lives in Castlemaine, Ambah O'Brien. You will have seen her on Ravelry. This is one of her patterns. have the name of the pattern coming across. So this is the Kentia or Kentia. It's Kentia. Again, it's across the bottom here. So this is also in Bendigo Woollen Mills yarns. So that's a lovely beanie. Another one just in a hand spun. So a self-striping hand spun yarn. Again, just from another local producer. This is another beanie that's actually in some recycled yarn. This used to be a large men's cardigan. Again, this is actually Bendigo Woollen Mills Rustic. So this is non-superwash. So particularly warm, great for hats. Those mittens that I showed you earlier in this as well. So we actually got a lot of great use out of this yarn. I have a few of those in the shop. I've also done some little baby size, so I can't try those on. For those of you who follow the Grocery Girls on YouTube, this is one of Tracie's designs. So this is the Tartan Toque. So I really enjoyed knitting this pattern. It's all just done in slip stitches, but it was actually a really enjoyable knit. Easy enough to memorise, with enough going on. You can see there's some gorgeous garter stitching going through there as well. I've also been doing some cabling. Again, these are in some Bendigo Woollen Mills yarns. So this one has the longer brim, so you can fold it up should you wish to, or you can wear it down. I like them down, I don't like them folding up for me. I really love this honey yarn. So again, more cables in the honey yarn, with a longer brim on this one as well. This was the other Fair Old hat, just in the different colours. So again, that's that Fair Old pattern. I knitted this is the colours of the transgender flag, so my LGBTQIA plus colourways. So I'm wanting to knit a few more of these up. So this is also in the Etsy shop. Another hand spun, locally dyed. This was another one from the Seymour Agricultural Show. So self-stropping. This was another woolly wormhead pattern. I knitted it out of a hand spun again, hand dyed hand spun, and it's almost a moss stitch kind of pattern. I haven't pulled it out because I feel someone actually may like this. I'm going to do a market stall. I'm thinking about doing a market stall at some place at some time. It's quite a baggy hat, which isn't a bad thing because I know that that's actually a design feature that a lot of people do like. It's not my aesthetic, but having said that, it looks perfectly fine on me. But yeah, so it's particularly warm. You can't feel any breeze at all coming through this because it's so thick, and it's quite a heavy hat. This used almost the full skein just in the hat itself, with that being that moss stitch pattern. But again, another beautiful pattern by Woolly Wormhead. Just a pink with a mohair through it. A speckled grey. Again with the yarn overs, playing around with the slip stitches, some colour blocking and stripes, and in a brown. A really woolly, this is a fisherman's tweed. Some more mild colours. It's a blue and grey mild together. Really, really quite thick and squishy. Some more self-striping, and then just some more in those fisherman tweeds. I actually quite like these. There is a quite nice and rustic in their look as well. And then some younger people sizes. So some blues and browns, some nice pinks. Oops, dropping one. A younger child just in a nice bone colour. So if you're interested in having a look, I've got these on my Etsy shop. If not, that's fine too. You can just have a look at the images of them. That's all the beanies I've been going crazy with. Again, COVID, so you're kind of wanting to knit things that are relatively stress-free, nice and simple, no issues with. I've missed a lot of my knitting there as well. One sec. Okay. I've also been doing some spinning. I haven't plied these yet, but just again, Bendigo Woollen Mills fibres. This is just a nice ply of an olive green and some bone through that there. So I have 4 bobbins of this ready to go. I just need to ply them together, set them. I've been waiting because I need to buy some more fibre, because when everyone moved back in as a result of COVID, all of my family and dogs and like, it took us a little bit of adjustment to get used to the fact that my husband and I had to go back to putting everything away constantly as though everyone were children again. So my beautiful massive bag of fibre that I had managed to spin 4 bobbins, this lovely olive, the dogs got into an 8. So I suddenly lost 2/3 of a bag of fibre. It wasn't salvageable. I couldn't sort of just fix it, so I had to get rid of that. So I kind of shelved this for a while. I need to get some more fibre. I don't need to buy more fibre. I've actually got a huge tub of fibre in there. But I just need to figure out now what I'm going to pair with this olive to apply, because I was going to do olive on olive with just a little bit of this bone colour through it. But now I'm just going to have it, I'll add a whole nother colour. Likely, I've got some nice just cream fibre in there, so I might just do a few bobbins and that and apply those together. But it was a little bit disheartening, so. All right, well, thank you very much for bearing with me. I'll edit this down to something of a reasonable length. I just realised I have not spoken about the sweater I'm actually wearing. I'll talk about that because I need to actually look up the pattern again. And the finishing of the neck of this one, I'll talk about the pattern a bit more in detail in the next one, but I actually crocheted it because when it came time to be picking up for the neckline, I was feeling particularly disheartened. I think the dogs had just eaten the fibre, so I thought I just can't deal with this. So I actually just crocheted it, and I actually really like it. It was super fast to just simply crochet a neck. But again, it's just a Bendigo Woollen Mills. It's just a tweed on the top, a bone down the bottom. I didn't really feel like doing a proper ribbed hem, so I actually just did how did I finish it off? I can't think of what I did. I couldn't be bothered doing a normal ribbed hem, so I did a different type of hem, but as I said, I'll go through this in a bit more detail in the next podcast. All right. Thank you very much for joining me. Again, so sorry it's been so long for the posting. There's been a change in jobs. COVID happened to all of us. All of our kids, our adult kids, moved back in. So the house is no longer ours. I barely have space to do anything. But we're trying to make do. So thank you very much. Hopefully it won't be too long before I post again. I want to try and at a minimum do a monthly upload. But I'll probably do another one in the next week or two. Just so I can actually catch up with everything I've been knitting. Thanks again. Have a lovely, lovely day. Bye.